Nagi, consumed by his emotions, falters during exams, tumbling all the way down to 13th place, a stark contrast to his usual top rankings. This unexpected shift rattles him, especially noticing Hiro, who has retaken the lead, appears visibly affected by his decline, intensifying Nagi's sense of failure. Erika initially fails to grasp the gravity of the situation until Sachi reminds her that Nagi has never slipped below 2nd place, let alone to 13th. Nagi attributes his downfall to overconfidence after surpassing Hiro once and his dwindling focus due to enjoying his time with Erika. Despite his self-blame, Erika persuades him into a more positive mindset. The following day, Hiro arrives late to their usual study session and overhears Nagi and Erika engaged in their typical banter. Disheartened, she decides to leave, further distancing herself from Nagi. His spirits plummet until he receives an unexpected summons from Hiro. Concerned, Erika believes Hiro might have given up on Nagi post his exam catastrophe, potentially leading to a permanent rejection. However, Hiro's distress lies not in Nagi's grades but in the fact that Erika was the one who managed to comfort him rather than herself, his academic rival. Realizing his lingering feelings for Hiro and her enduring care for him, Nagi resolves to refocus on his studies. Erika, seeking Nagi's assistance, reveals her own struggles with abysmal grades. She discloses that failure in any upcoming exams would force her back to her parents' home. This revelation prompts Nagi to reconsider his priorities and help Erika, understanding the weight of her predicament. Erika reaches a point of frustration after 3 hours of struggling without answering a single question, resigning herself to the idea of moving out. Nagi feels disappointed, realizing that he and Sachi might have to return to their parents' cramped flat. Recognizing Erika's relentless efforts, Sachi insists that instead of half-heartedly teaching while focusing on his own studies, Nagi should genuinely help Erika learn. Realizing his previous ineffective approach, Nagi bursts into Erika's room with a new resolve. He'll teach her the fundamental technique for passing exams, memorization of typical test questions. After an intense weekend of study, Erika manages to achieve a passing grade. Soichiro, content that his strategy to guide Erika worked, expresses his satisfaction. Sachi invites Erika to a nearby festival close to their parents' diner, where both Sachi and Nagi are expected to assist in running their family's yakisoba stall. However, Sachi becomes flustered when a customer mistakes her and Nagi for a couple. Meanwhile, Hiro appears and asks Nagi to join her at the festival once he finishes work, leaving Sachi feeling irritated that he won't be accompanying her and Erika. Later on, Hiro encounters Erika and Sachi together, bewildered by the revelation that Sachi is somehow both Erika's sister and also related to Nagi. Nagi and Erika end up alone at the festival. Erika draws attention from her fans, so Nagi buys a mask. Nagi bumps into Sachi with her friends and overhears them teasing Sachi about her brother complex. Erika is suddenly swarmed by the fans who try to break into their house, one of whom has trained his muscles for his rematch with Nagi. Not wanting to cause a scene, Nagi and Erika flee. Erika decides this summer has been her favorite, even compared to summers she spent with her parents on foreign holidays. They watch the fireworks together, and both Sachi and Hiro are disappointed they didn't get to watch them with Nagi. Hiro catches up to them and finally asks how they are related since they both claim Sachi is their sister. Nagi feels guilty, so they finally tell Hiro about being switched at birth and now engaged. Hiro accepts the explanation and Erika hopes they will now be better friends. As she has to buy a gift for Sachi, Erika remains at the festival while Nagi walks Hiro home. Hiro makes Nagi promise to never keep another secret and he agrees, though their interaction is seen by Sachi. Nagi returns home happier than ever while Sachi asks Erika about Hiro. Erika and Sachi spend all day following Hiro but find nothing suspicious about her. Sachi announces she plans to attend the same high school as Nagi and begins studying diligently. Nagi shares with Erika how he feels Sachi is acting strangely and feels less and less like a sister. Sachi attends an open day at the school with Hiro as her guide. Sachi asks Hiro what she thinks about Nagi. Hiro repeats her claim she is engaged but admits she is fascinated by Nagi. Nagi rushes to hear what they are saying but finds Sachi and Hiro have somehow become friends. At home, Sachi has kept on studying but Nagi remains worried as their school is a private academy with yearly fees and their parents already struggle to pay just for him. However, their parents decide if Sachi gets accepted they will just sell their restaurant to pay the fees. Sachi refuses to let that happen and a battle of wills breaks out between Sachi and Nami, with Nagi and Yohei terrified and powerless to stop them until Erika steps in to calm everyone. As they return home, Sachi calls Erika's sister for the first time, leaving Nagi disappointed she didn't call him brother. Nagi, Erika, and Hiro decide to study at Erika's holiday home in Karuizawa, though Cheyenne invites himself as well. Erika makes sure to hide a photo on a display table before anyone sees it. Cheyenne goes food shopping with Erika, leaving Nagi alone with Hiro. Hiro decides they should sneak away to a nearby lake where she admits sometimes she finds it hard to focus on studying. Cheyenne decides there is something he wants Erika to know. Hiro decides to take a bath, distracting Nagi who cannot study knowing Hiro is naked. Erika returns and joins Hiro in the bath. Cheyenne claims he confessed to Erika, though it transpires he only thanked her for inviting him to study with them. Nagi is relieved it wasn't a confession but then confused as to why he was relieved. Erika reveals to Hiro she forgot to pack anything for the trip, like underwear or pajamas. They attempt to study until Cheyenne reveals he found a shrine in the forest perfect for a test of courage. courage. Cheyenne plans to go with Erika and Nagi with Hiro, but Erika suddenly chooses to go with Nagi, claiming she has something important to discuss. Knowing Nagi needs to beat Hiro at exams to date her, Cheyenne asks why Hiro is obsessed with scoring the highest. She avoids answering and instead offers to help Cheyenne confess to Erika, though she hides her reason for doing so. Sachi, sick with a fever, is taken to hospital. Erika explains to Nagi she has run out of underwear and is naked under her dress, so she brought him with her as he is the only one she trusts to walk her to a convenience store to buy some. After dinner, Hiro comments Nagi seems happier and he realizes he is actually enjoying himself. Nagi suggests they go stargazing, but he receives a text from Nami about Sachi. Erika eventually realizes Nagi is missing, having left to get the train home without telling anyone. At hospital, Sachi scolds Nagi for abandoning his friends, but is happy he came. Erika returns home and Nagi is surprised she agrees he did the right thing. Her response makes Nagi realize due to their different upbringings he really has no idea about Erika's personal life. Hiro ponders a picture she saw, the one Erika tried to hide. Soichiro goes to Karuizawa and retrieves the picture, revealing it is the picture showing Erika and a boy resembling Nagi, and that he placed it there hoping Nagi would see it. Nagi confronts Erika about the person she is trying to find, having realized it must be someone she loves, and finally asks her who it is, regardless of the consequences. Erika shows Nagi the picture and confirms that it is not actually Nagi, it is her older brother Sasuke, Nagi's biological older brother. She is surprised when Nagi fails to react to the news. For unexplained reasons, Erika's parents pretend Sasuke does not exist, but Erika always wanted to see him again, and when she first met Nagi she initially thought he was Sasuke. Erika is close to giving up being an internet celebrity as her fame has not prompted Sasuke to contact her even once. Nagi decides they will find Sasuke together by searching for him directly instead of waiting for him to contact Erika. Sachi finally returns from hospital. Nagi thinks back over his every interaction with Erika and convinces himself he was just a substitute for Sasuke. He decides to ask his biological parents, Soichiro and Ritsuko, the truth about Sasuke. Soichiro turns out to have been expecting Nagi to visit. Erika tells Sachi about Sasuke and Sachi realizes it explains a lot about Erika's personality. She is a younger sister too. Soichiro continues to claim Sasuke does not exist and shocks Nagi by suggesting that all his troubles would be solved if Nagi married Sachi. Nagi returns home frustrated at having learned nothing about Sasuke and finds Erika and Sachi preparing for summer break. Erika is unsurprised he failed and surprisingly does agree Nagi could technically marry Sachi, but then goes quiet when Nagi points out, by Soichiro's logic, Erika could marry Sasuke. Out of nowhere, Hiro invites Nagi on a second date to go bicycling. Before they leave she poses him a riddle. What is the nearest and farthest thing? On their ride Nagi thinks about Soichiro's confusing and irritating behavior. He and Hiro arrive at a beach where Hiro reveals the riddle answer is family. Nagi admits he is frustrated by Soichiro while Hiro admits she wants to grow to an adult as quickly as possible, but doesn't explain why. Sachi has another meal with Soichiro who outright asks her if she is willing to marry Nagi. Returning home Sachi begins acting distantly, worrying Nagi with her behavior. Sachi becomes angrier every time Nagi acts like an older brother and, in her frustration, asks him if she were to propose marriage to him would he marry her. When he claims he wouldn't because she is his sister, she pretends to have been joking. Nagi receives his end-of-year report and, despite his temporary fall to 13th place, has risen to first. Nagi hopes he and Hiro will start dating, but Hiro turns him down again, citing the existence of her fiancé, though she does wish she were Nagi's fiancé instead. Erika invites everyone to one of her beach houses so they can discover what Hiro meant. Erika decides Hiro can't discover they are living together, but when they return home Sachi had invited Hiro over to study. Hiro is actually not surprised as she had suspected they lived together for some time. At the beach Nagi asks why Sachi told Hiro the truth. Sachi claims it was so Hiro could come over more often to tutor her, so Nagi shouldn't complain as it means he can see Hiro more often. Nagi is unsure so Erika offers to talk to Hiro since she suspects Soichiro is really to blame. Nagi apologizes to Hiro, and while she isn't upset he has been lying, she does seem upset that he has fun with Erika while living together. She forgives him and then reveals Sachi has a crush on him, to his disbelief. Erika is convinced Hiro is in love with Nagi but Sachi is doubtful. Nagi bluntly asks Sachi if she has a crush on him, and though she punishes him for embarrassing her, she never actually denies it. Sachi is mad at Hiro for what she told Nagi but also confused about what Soichiro had said. Nagi decides to bathe naked in Erika's outdoor bath and is shocked when she joins him, also naked. At first Nagi thinks she is trying to seduce him, realizing too late Erika actually had a bikini on. Later, Erika explains the house only has 2 beds and by drawing lots Sachi must share with Nagi. Erika asks about Hiro's fiancé and she admits she has never met him. Hiro then asks if Erika would let her marry Nagi instead, but Hiro falls asleep before Erika can answer. Nagi cannot sleep so close to Sachi so he leaves and finds Erika, who had remembered she and Sasuke came to the beach house every summer. From this, Erika finds evidence on a games console that Sasuke was in the beach house only 3 days ago. Hoping Sasuke might still be in the nearby town, Nagi rushes to locate him. Erika is scared that they might find Sasuke, so suddenly after years of searching and can't think what she would say to him, so Nagi promises to support her. After searching all day no one in the town knows Sasuke, so Erika decides Sasuke must have left already, but is still grateful to Nagi for his help. Hiro announces she and Nagi will travel home separately from Erika and Sachi and take the train to a nearby shrine so they can collect the stamp together. Erika reveals to Sachi that Hiro wants to marry Nagi. The train is cancelled, stranding Nagi and Hiro. Erika and Sachi are horrified when Nagi texts them that he and Hiro will be staying the night. Nagi is embarrassed when, in order to get a hotel room, he and Hiro must claim to be married. Nagi promises to sleep on the floor, but when Hiro trips over her bathrobe they end up on the bed. Nagi tries to stand, but Hiro comments that since they lied to get the room, doing another bad thing won't matter. Nagi is embarrassed when Hiro actually suggests they buy alcohol as she is tired of being a perfect student and wants to misbehave for once. The police suddenly arrive and Nagi panics as he worries lying about their age will lead to being expelled from school. It turns out to be a prank by Erika and Sachi, who hired a taxi to pick them up. As Nagi was half-naked changing clothes, he is punished by Erika and Sachi, who demand to know if anything happened, but Hiro gives a deliberately vague answer as they drive home. Nagi, Sachi and Erika are invited to Yohei's birthday. Erika looks at photos from Yohei's previous birthdays and sees in one of them a young girl with silver hair. Nami and Yohei reveal they wanted Nagi and Erika to marry as a way to keep all their children together, but they no longer worry about it. Nagi and Erika realize that there really is no longer a reason for them to stay engaged. The next day Erika comes down with a fever. Sachi and Hiro appoint themselves her nurses, but Erika sends them away. Nagi steps in and discovers Erika has been so concerned about Sachi and Hiro she tired herself out until she became sick. Erika asks how Nagi knows her so well and he claims it is because she is his fiancée. Overhearing, Sachi and Hiro realize Erika will always be closest to Nagi, upsetting Hiro in particular. Yohei sends them a copy of his birthday photo, which includes Erika. Erika wonders if one day she will have a family like Nagi's, and Nagi hints anything is possible. Sachi sneaks out to another meeting with Soichiro, who is pleased Nagi and Erika are making good progress towards marriage, but he intends it to be their choice without pressure from him. Meanwhile, Erika and Nagi resume arguing about household chores and both despair about being engaged to someone so irritating. The moral of the series might center on the significance of open communication and being genuine in one's feelings. It could emphasize that building a strong and lasting relationship requires honesty, trust, and the courage to express oneself sincerely. Additionally, it might highlight the importance of accepting each other's differences and embracing the unique qualities that make individuals who they are. Overall, the series could promote the idea that genuine connections are nurtured through mutual respect, honesty, and a willingness to understand and support each other. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel because it is very important for the development of the channel.